What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be replacing this Bryant ancient AC with a brand new Rude system, and we're going to show you the whole process from start to finish. To begin with, this system is fully functional. They wanted to upgrade the system to a higher efficient unit, and they just wanted peace of mind. So we're going to show you how to pump all of the refrigerant into this unit so that we can then take this away. We can either recover that refrigerant into a tank, or we could throw it on Facebook. Someone will pick it up, and it's a nice way to get the refrigerant out of the lines so you can cut them, do everything you need to do, and set up your new system. So we got the front cover off of this unit. Everything is still live, so be extra cautious with that. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to close off the high side completely. So we're going to take this cap off, close it off with our Allen wrench. All right, so this is locked completely. That's going to prevent any refrigerant from being pushed this way. So what that's going to do is all of the refrigerant is going to stack inside the compressor, and it's going to be sucked in through here. It's going to stack. It doesn't have anywhere to go. And once our gauges are reading 0, we're going to close this down all the way. Okay, so if you have this style condenser, the way that this works is when this is completely open or turned in the counterclockwise direction and locked, you will be able to hook up your gauges. But in order to get any sort of pressure reading, you need to close this or run it clockwise in order to get a reading. So let's throw our gauge on here and see what we got. All right, so as you can see, we've got nothing right here. We're going to go ahead and open this, or I should say close it. And as you can see, now we're showing pressure. So what we'll do is turn the system on. We're going to crank this down, and we're going to wait for that to show 0, and then we'll lock it all the way down. Now, since this is live, what we're going to do is just hold the contactor down with an insulated screwdriver, watch our pressures drop, and then once it's at 0, we'll lock this down. All right, so we're going to press this in. There we go. And it's as easy as that, folks, to get the refrigerant locked into your condenser. As you can see, we're golden to go ahead and cut our lines. Pull this away, we can cut it at the evaporator coil, and we're ready to get the system replaced. Okay, so what we'll do next is turn off our AC breaker, and we can now disconnect all of this electrical here and pull it off of the unit. We can also check this with a hot pen or a voltmeter just to confirm that nothing is miswired here and that we don't have voltage. As you can see, this capacitor, these are mushroomed out. So this capacitor was well on its way to being done. So it was a good call to go ahead and replace this. It's definitely seen better days. It was very noisy. So I think it was a good call to go ahead and get this replaced. And then right here, we just have our 2 wires that tell the condenser to come on. The polarity does not matter on these. So once we turn our power off at the furnace, these will be dead and we can just pull it away from the unit. All right, so after some minor excavation, this was just crazy how grown over this was. We actually left the old pad because it had sunk so much. So we leveled it out, put our new pad on top of that, leveled it out. Everything is really sturdy now. Got our old system here. Next, what we're gonna do is fit our piping. This should be pretty easy. I'm thinking I might be able to do a 45 right here, just go straight in. And then we're gonna cut out this filter dryer and probably put the new one on the inside. But once we cut this off, we'll see what we're working with. It's so tight though, I might have to unsweat this and see if I can reuse this fitting right here, because it's just really close to the wall here. It's also a good practice to just go ahead and tape these off, make sure no contaminants get inside of this line. All right, so before we tear into the furnace, we want to locate the correct one. As you can see right here, 14. We've got that turned off, so we can go ahead and start tearing apart the furnace. All right, so here is what we're working with on our furnace. Terry's gotten started ripping it out. So this is a 21-inch furnace with AC. We're gonna rip out the transition to there and build our new one. So we're putting in a 96% variable speed, the new coil, and we actually got a 17-inch width furnace so that we can accommodate our filter rack here. So we should have enough room to install that. So yeah, once we get the coil ripped out, it should be pretty straightforward. We're gonna get some more light in here and show you what we got. So we got our filter dryer cut off and we unsweated this piece that was here. So we did a real short piece of 45 and it lined up perfectly with this guy. Next, what we're gonna do is build a 45 out of a piece of copper. So we're gonna bend it at 45. We're gonna leave this end male and we're gonna swage this side, slide it up, and I'm gonna braze this system. Normally I like to use Staybrite 8, but because of this fitting, it's so close to this wall that it left some of this old braze puddling when I de-sweated it. So I'm gonna be forced to braze this system in. So we're gonna get nitrogen hooked up to it, flowing through it, and then we'll get this brazed up. And of course, we're gonna get these wrapped with our wet rag so that they don't burn up. Okay, so we got our piece fitted right here. This is gonna go just like that, except this end is gonna be swaged and it should fit perfectly right there. And what we're gonna be using are these are made by Rector Seal Pro Fit is what they're called. You may have seen these in some previous videos. These are extremely easy to use. You simply chuck this in your drill bit and the friction and the heat expands it eventually and it will swage a pipe, and it's a really nice tool to have. There it goes. All right, and just like that, we have a perfect deep swage. So let's test fit this piece. Perfect, everything fits peachy. We're going to hook up our nitrogen right here to the low side. We'll start by taking off this schrader core and have our schrader core tool there. So that way, when we're done with our pressure test, we can actually just blow all of that nitrogen out really fast. And that's gonna get rid of any contaminants as well. So let's get our nitrogen hooked up and then we'll get to brazing. All right, so for those of you that haven't seen these, this is called a schrader core removal tool. This is a highly valuable tool. If you're curious where to find this tool, you can find it on our website, diyhvac.org, and you can find an Amazon link for that product there. Now what we're gonna do is snap this in. If you push, you'll hear it snap. That means it locked in. We're going to take the schrader core completely out like that, and then you can stick it to the side of the unit or stick it somewhere for safekeeping. And then we'll thread this tool on. All right, so our core tool is hooked up. The blue hose goes to our manifold, and then the yellow hose from our manifold goes to this guy. You can also find this on our Amazon store. Our gas is on. Before we turn this nitrogen on, we're going to wrap the valves with our wet rag. This is a heat blocking putty. It's really nice too because you can re-moisturize this if it ever dries out. Add a little bit of water, mix it up, and you're good to go. Now it does make a little bit of a mess, but it is completely water soluble. So we can, once we're done with this, we can grab a hose and just rinse this down. Let's get our nitrogen flowing. What we're gonna be using here is our compact torch kit. This is also an amazing tool that I highly recommend. Instead of those big bulky torches that a lot of guys use, this is more of like a jewelry torch, but it works great for this. You'll see how easy it works. So let's get it lit. We'll show you how small the flame and the tip is and how good this works. have it. We'll probably put some hot block right here as well. So I'm probably gonna transfer this over just so we're not heating up this. I'm not sure if my thermostat wire is pushed up against that pipe or not, but I don't wanna melt it. So we're gonna put some right here. All right, so we're just gonna take this off. We've let that cool for a little bit. Sometimes this sticks to the pipe a little bit because it kind of gets hard when it gets really hot. But we're gonna rinse this off with water, no problem, as well as that. So don't mind the messiness of it. So next we're just gonna put this all on our high side valve. That's it. All right, so here's the other furnace. Looks like it was a 92% efficiency. And look how huge this thing is. It's a 21 inch with a 16 by 20 opening. So our new 16 by 20 17 is gonna be properly sized. This is also, I think, an 80K, which is way too big. Super common out here in Utah for whatever reason, but this is the old coil. As you can see, it was pretty rusty. You can see some rust down there at the bottom. I'm curious to see what the bottom of this looks like. I've seen worse. Not too terribly bad. Ooh, this one's pretty bad. Dang. So keep your coils clean, guys, because this severely impacts how much air is going to come out of your vents and how clean it is. Make sure you have a good sealed filter, because this is what will happen if you don't. Previously, how the filter was held in place was you would open the furnace and you would just slide the filter on the inside, and a lot of air would bypass through here, and that's how you get a clogged filter, or a clogged coil rather. So definitely try and avoid that. Make sure you have a nice sealed filter. If that's in your budget to do, I highly recommend putting in like a 4 or 5 inch media filter. You can also see on this old fan how much nasty stuff was caught in all of these fins, just caked up. Crazy. Really nasty stuff. All right, here's the new furnace. I absolutely love the Rude front panels, how easy they are to remove. So we have our install guide there, all of our drain kit. All right, so our old filter rack, or our old filter opening, I should say, was 16 by 20. That's exactly what our new Honeywell F100 is. This is a 16 by 20. So we're just gonna match it on this one. So this is gonna go back as far as possible. So we're gonna leave about 1 inch here, and we're gonna mount it just like that. And we should be golden. What we're gonna be using here is our Malco turbo shears. They make this job really easy. So we're just gonna trace out where our cuts are, and we'll show you how to do that. All right, so now that this is traced out, we're gonna drill a hole in the corner so we can get our turbo shears started. All right, there we have it. Just gonna remove this insulation, get that nice and cleaned up, and then we can get this brought down to the basement and get our return box mounted to it. All right, so we got our furnace completely removed. We have sufficient space for our filter rack as well as our new furnace. So 17.5 and then another 6.5 for the filter rack. We have the hole in our furnace cut exactly to match. So we're gonna slide it in. Go ahead and get the rest of this taken out first, and then we can start making our connections here. Now, if you haven't noticed, in my trailer I have this Iceco fridge. I wanted to take just a second to talk about it. Being as the weather is getting a lot hotter, it's important to stay hydrated. And this thing has been awesome. As you can see, it's been put through the paces. Stuff gets thrown around in here, and it's always worked really well. And then we have the refrigerator part here. And this is really cool because it opens both ways. So you can open it either way. Really nice setup here. And then all of it's hooked up to our solar system. So I have a switch here. I can turn on the fridge. And then if you look right here, you can see the display. We're currently set to about 20 degrees. And this also has a battery protect mode. So it will not run and kill the batteries completely. It'll run to a certain percentage that you can set here. Huge shout out to Iceco for sending this fridge out. I really have been loving it so far, and I highly recommend them. Let's get back into our video. All right, so everything is done out here. I'm really confident with all of these braze joints. Everything looks super good. So I'm gonna go ahead and insulate our suction line, get that completely done. Okay, so this is insulated. Everything turned out really nice there. Now we have a lot of extra wire, so I want to show you something that I use as a tip to keep this wire in case you need it in the future. What you can actually do is take a screwdriver and just start coiling it like so. And this is going to look nice and pretty and clean, and you'll still be able to retain this wire should you ever need that length in the future. So now as soon as you let go, you have a nice little spool like that. So we're going to feed this up into the hole here for our communication wires. And then once we wire nut those, we'll have a nice little spool right here, and it looks nice and clean when it's all done. Now we're just going to wire nut these two to this brown and yellow. It doesn't matter on the polarity. And then for these ones, super easy. We're just going to feed this into here, and we're going to use some adapters here to go to 1/2 inch. I'll show you what those look like. And then red will go to one leg here, black will go to the other, doesn't matter which one. And then of course ground goes to here. So these are the adapters we're going to be using. They convert a 3/4 inch hole to a 1/2 inch. So it just sits right there. And then on this side, we'll just run it onto this. So I just picked up a set of these. They're really nice to have instead of trying to get channel locks, especially when these are in a tight quarters, like in one of these disconnect boxes. This can be a real lifesaver. Instead of trying to smack on it with a flat blade screwdriver, these work really nice. Okay, so all the electrical is done here. So we have one leg going to the left side, one to the right, and then our ground and our 2 communication wires. So everything is done here in terms of wiring and brazing. We're going to focus on the inside portion, and then we'll come out here to do the pressure test and pull our vacuum. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. We've got our 3 sides of this transition built. If you don't know how to build a transition and you want to learn how to do that, I've got several videos, other installs where we walked you through step by step. So basically you start with the back side, and you have 2 bends for 1 inch bends on each side. So you'd measure your width, add 1 inch for each side, and then bend those out. And then you'll put S clip like this on each of those, and these pieces will just slide into that S. And all you have to do is seal up the corners with duct seal. And then we're going to build this front piece that will have a male end that will go into this S and 2 males here. And then it'll have a little bend out so that we can attach it with zip screws on the bottom there. So everything is sealed here with a coil with clear caulking. This is fully sealed. I'm just waiting for the inside to dry before I put my filter in. And then we extended our wires up here. There's a junction box. You can't really see it, but we took the old metal stuff off here because it wasn't quite long enough. And we have new MC, so we're gonna attach it and run it down the side here. And then our box with our switch is gonna be here somewhere. Our PVC venting we're gonna attach to, so the intake is just gonna come up, over, and then attach here. And then our one here will come up, over, and we're gonna do a 90 right here, so it'll kind of look something like that. And it's nice that this doesn't get in the way of our lines here, and we'll still have access to be able to take off this coil should we ever need to access it to clean it or just monitor what it looks like in there. Now this MC cable, you can get this at Home Depot, in case you're wondering, and all of the PVC stuff you can get from Home Depot also. The fittings for these ACR, you can't get those at Home Depot. These are specialty items, but you can get them from supplyhouse.com. ACR fittings are thicker than regular plumbing ones, and the diameter is actually different. So a 3/4 inch one in ACR is going to be different than a plumbing one. One other thing on these coils, on any coil, they come pre-filled with a little bit of nitrogen, and the reason for that is so that you can tell that there's no leaks, that it didn't get damaged in shipping. And so you'll notice when I take this plug out, we'll get a little spurt of nitrogen, hopefully, and that will confirm that there's no leaks on this coil. There we go. Easy as that. All right, so what we're going to be using here is our RLS crimp tool, and this is a specialty RLS filter dryer. As you can see, we have an RLS fitting on our liquid line currently, and all this will do is this is going to point towards the coil. And the reason why this is different is it's just a male end. It doesn't have a swage at the end, so we'll simply slide this in, and then we'll create a 90 here, and we'll show you exactly how easy it is to press this in. Now this is probably going to become something that's more common because of the A2L refrigerants that are flammable. This is going to be something that probably more people will be forced into using. I think it's great personally. I've used this several times and I haven't had a single leak yet. I've heard of other folks who use it on all of their installs and they haven't had any problems. So I think the crimp tool is a great thing. And this is what the tool looks like itself. This is the RLS version, but I got an adapter so I don't have to have specialty batteries. And one thing they recommend is to, whenever you're using a certain clamp size, to run it once and then it's calibrated. And that's it. So you simply put these jaws on. You can't really put it on wrong. They just clamp over the one rib there, and I crimp it and it's good to go. And of course we're going to do a 350 psi pressure test just to confirm that everything's good to go. All right, so the first thing we're going to do with this RLS, or with any RLS fitting, is we're going to use the proper size gauge. We'll slide it all the way in. We'll just make a simple mark like that, and that's how far your fitting should go on. So when we slide this up into the RLS fitting, this lip should meet that mark. And you want to be pretty ginger here. You don't want to force this. You want to kind of twist it as you go, and you should feel it slide past the rubber O-ring. If it feels like something is binding, then you probably have an issue. You could have messed up the O-ring. We'll go ahead and press this one while we're at it. That way I don't have to hold it with anything. So we're simply going to put our tool on. It kind of guides itself onto the fitting. Just gonna make sure our mark is there, and we're gonna press and hold the RLS trigger. That's it. And it's critical too that you make sure there's no divots and that this is really clean, because if you have a little divot in here somewhere and it ends up being right where this O-ring goes, you could have a problem. So again, we're gonna slide it up. Just gonna twist slowly and it should slide past that O-ring, and that's it. So we're gonna slide this on the grooves there, press and hold hold it for a couple of seconds after, and that's it. That is the finished product. It's as easy as that to use this tool. Now, I had to use this because I didn't have a filter dryer. This was an open box condenser that we got. You notice we didn't take it out of the box. So I'm going to show you all three methods of securing your copper pipe. So we brazed outside. We did the RLS here. We'll do another fitting here. And we're going to Staybrite 8 these two fittings right here. So we're also going to show you how easy the Staybrite 8 is to use. And that way you know all three methods. All right, so now that we got the 3/4 jaws, we're going to calibrate these. So we'll just hold it down. All right, so we have these to the proper marks. We've got an elbow here and then a coupler there. So I'll show you how simple this is. There's one. Two. Drop down to our elbow here. And lastly, we have this one here. Easy as that. So next we're going to show you how to do the Staybrite 8 right here on these last two fittings. And then we'll put this on our pressure test and let it sit at about 350 psi. All right, so the first thing we're going to do with the Staybrite 8 is we're going to put our flux on. You want to be pretty conservative with this. You don't want to get a ton of flux inside of here. So we're going to slide it off. We're not going to blob it on all the way to the end. We're just going to kind of go around like so. And this is critical. If you try and use the Staybrite 8 without this, it's not going to work. And obviously we Scotch-Brited these before we started. And then when you push that in, you'll have some excess. So go ahead and just take that off. And we'll flux our liquid line. Okay, so we got that fluxed up. Just gonna slide it on in. Wipe off our excess. And this is ready to be soldered. Now the great part about this is it's so fast and so low temperature that you don't even really have to wrap this with anything. You'll see how fast and how quickly we can do this. And that's one advantage. You don't have to run nitrogen because this only gets up to about 400 degrees versus brazing that's about 1200 degrees. So as you saw earlier, we were running nitrogen through the pipes. We don't have to do that now on these last two joints. Okay, let's move on to this guy. All right, so we got our unit hooked back up to our nitrogen. We have this tool removed, got our nitrogen on. So we're going to feed in about 350 psi. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is I try and feed in about 50 psi and just make sure there's not a rapid loss of pressure. So it looks like we're steady at 288. So we'll go ahead and keep feeding in. Looks like we're at about 370. This will take a couple of minutes to kind of stabilize. So we'll come back in about 5 minutes. We'll check our pressure and then we'll let it sit for about 20 minutes and make sure that it hasn't dropped. All right, so this is kind of specific to Root equipment. If you buy an ACIQ or a Goodman, the TXV is going to have the bulb installed inside the cabinet, but for whatever reason they make you put it on here with this clamp. So you want to clamp it at 10 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I believe. So this is ready to be covered. We're under our pressure test right now. We're holding at 370. So we're going to go ahead and insulate this and that will all be completely done. All right, so we settled at 368 about 30, maybe even 40 minutes ago. We've been wrapping up the PVC venting and the electrical, and we're golden on the pressure test. So what we'll do now is go ahead and take this off. Turn our pressure off as well. And we'll make sure these are both off. Bleed off this pressure. And then what we'll do is let all of this pressure off at once. So this is going to blast out and get any contaminants that might be in the system out. So let's go ahead and open this up and let her rip. All right, we're going to close it right before it gets to open air to keep any moisture out of there. And next we're going to get our True Blue kit out. This is a one hose setup that I use for every install. So the 1/2 inch side goes to my NAVAC 3 CFM battery powered pump, and this goes straight to that suction line, no schrader core, and I can typically pull down a system in about 10 minutes. And then what we'll do is have our Micron gauge on the high side. So this is going to be the furthest point away from our vacuum pump. So it's going to get the most accurate reading on how dry the system is and how much vacuum there is on it. So here's our NAVAC pump hooked up. We have the 1/2 inch line there, and then our line going to our schrader core removal tool. We have our Hillmore Micron gauge going right here, and then we have an isolator valve so that when we get to the right micron level and we pass our decay test, we can turn this off and let the pressure in through these valves and not damage our Micron gauge. So let's go ahead and turn this guy on. You'll notice it has a slow start. I absolutely love this pump. I've used it many times. It's very compact. It works excellent. It's very quiet. And this has a one-way valve in it. So should the battery run out while you're inside working on something, it's going to maintain the same micron level and it won't let oxygen get into the system. So that's a nice feature. So we'll show you how quickly we'll start drawing down. We just started this at 520, and we'll give it a couple minutes and see what our Micron gauge says. It helps if you turn this on, huh? Notice the pitch change. See how quickly we're already dropping. So we'll let this run for about probably 5-10 minutes, and we'll come back and see where we're at. Okay, so we're at about 660. We're getting close to our target micron level, but while we're running, I just wanted to explain how this works. So every single system that you get, whether it's from HVAC Direct or if you get it from Amazon, get it locally, it's always going to be charged with refrigerant. And what we're doing right now is we're pulling a vacuum on these lines and the evaporator coil. So everything from this point, we're pulling a vacuum on. Now, as soon as we get to 500 and we pass our decay test, we're going to open these. We're going to isolate this, and we're going to open both of these Allen head keys, and that's going to allow the refrigerant that's inside of these coils to flow into the lines and into the evaporator coil. Now that's a misconception that a lot of people don't understand. They think that they have to purchase refrigerant separately and install it, but every unit will come pre-charged, and they're typically charged for 15 to 20 feet of line set length. So if you measure and it's longer than 20 feet, odds are you're going to have to add a little bit of refrigerant. But most of the time you can run it until you can get refrigerant to top it off, and it'll still function and cool really nice. So we're getting close to our target 500 microns. It's literally only been like 5 minutes and we're almost there. So we'll give this another 5, do our decay test, which is we isolate this from the pump. We isolate it, leave that open, and as long as we stay below 500, That's considered the decay test. And then once we pass that, we'll close this and we'll open this and let the refrigerant in, and we'll be ready to go. Okay, so we're down to 393 microns. So we're gonna isolate, turn this off, and as long as we don't get above 500 within 5 minutes, we're golden and we can open these valves up. And it's 5:36 right now. All right, it's been about 5 minutes. We're at 379 and holding. So we're going to go ahead and open this guy. We're gonna isolate this one first. Open this all the way. And then we'll move on to our suction line here. There we go. All right, so we can throw these caps back on, give those a snug. Okay, so on the schrader core, we're gonna take off our True Blue hose kit here. Next, what we'll do is take this that we had stuck to the top of the unit. We're gonna push this into the middle here, slide it in, and then we're gonna tighten this. Now, as soon as we open this, you'll see that pop out because it has pressure. With one hand, we're gonna hold it in, and with the other, we're going to tighten it until we get some resistance, and then we know it's fully seated. Just like that. Close this, let the pressure off, and then slowly open this to confirm that it's working. Now we can take our tool off, and this system is ready to be fired up. So we'll turn this on. We're gonna button up everything at the furnace. And once we get power to the furnace, this unit should kick on and we'll check it out. All right, the last thing we have to do is our condensate drain. Everything else here is buttoned up. Our refrigerant is in the system. So we're gonna go ahead and turn our breaker back on. I believe we're already set to cooling. So in just a second, we should hear this fan come on. There it is. Let's go outside and see what we got. Well guys, she is running beautifully. This is the finished product. We added just a little bit of refrigerant to it. Didn't take much. Our pressures are right on, and it's spitting out a ton of heat out of the top of this unit. So customers are really happy to get a new AC.
Well guys, I hope you found this video informative. All of the tools that were used on this job can be found on our new website, DIYHVAC.org. You can also find equipment there, as well as our training videos and our remote support membership there as well. I want to take a moment to talk about our giveaways as well. We are doing monthly giveaways valued between $500 and $2,000. Simply go to the main page of our channel, click the join button, and any of these tiers will get you automatically entered to our giveaway. Until next time, you guys be safe. Later.